Okay, I think we kick off now. So great pleasure to have that many people on board. Really fantastic use of time on this Friday here, the 21st, by the way. And yeah, let me introduce myself quick. So my name is Leon Sigmund. I run the Bitcoin Club Malta on Twitter, which is a little page where I share tweets from other excellent people and sometimes my own views. And the reason why we do this here is actually because I had planned to have a small, tiny little hangout with a few Lightning people to just update myself and get a bit more understanding. And then it kind of exploded because I was asking more people to join, and then everyone was like, yeah, that's a great idea, let's do it. And now it's like a pretty severe adventure here. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. And the agenda, again, one last time, we'll have a quick introduction round now, and then we just jump right into a open discussion, discuss topics, and it's going to be open-end, so whoever is the longest standing will have the most of it, basically. It's going to be live streamed also and recorded. So far to the housekeeping. And I want to thank you to Microlancer, because there were a few, so Microlancer is this beautiful platform that allows you to hire, like Udemy, basically, Upwork. You can hire people for Satoshis. And I had some friends from Microlancer helping me there. So thanks to Microlancer, the platform, as well as the team on Microlancer, the Lancers. Then I want to thank my interns who did a great job helping out. And I want to give a special round of applause to my dad, who is turning 70 next year and is still keeping up with the youngsters here and joining this conference, even though his English is not that good. He'll join us and learn a bit. He's also following it actively, so it's great. And yeah, then we kick it off. Did I forget something? Yeah, no, thanks for everyone joining, obviously. Great to have you, both all these amazing speakers as well as all the people in the audience. It's appreciated that you are interested in this, and yeah, let's have a great time together. For the audience, also make sure you have questions. I don't have that many. I have a few, but I will be out of questions at some point. So please take this opportunity to get in touch with your favorite Lightning experts and Lightning people. And yeah, so let's kick it off. Also, the speakers need to help as well. We have to find a way, because I don't really have a good hierarchy here. Who's joining when? So like the introduction will be like this. Everyone has 1 minute to share what his name, maybe, perhaps, if you want to do that, and what he is working on, he or she. Oh, we don't have that many women also. That's a real pity. So what are you working with, and what really excites you about the Lightning Network? Just 1 minute, everyone, one after another. We have to arrange it somehow, or maybe I'll try to call everyone. So let's start with Alex.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Alex Bosworth. I work at Lightning Labs. We make LND and Lightning Loop. I work on those things, and I'm very excited about the growth. I feel like the network effect is very key to Lightning. To have more and more people join, I can kind of see that happening. The more people who connect, the more people you can send to, the more people who can send to you. So that's something that I'm really focused on right now.
Excellent. Let's follow with Rene.
Yes, so I'm René Pickardt, working in Norway at the Norwegian Technical University, where I'm researching about payment path finding and reliability of payments, routing, everything that is related to these kinds of questions.
Excellent. On to Ken.
I'm Ken, the founder of Moon. You may have seen it as Pay with Moon. It's paywithmoon.com. We have a platform that allows consumers to pay with Lightning Network anywhere Visa is accepted in the United States. The reason I started the company, what's exciting to me about Lightning is that if people are going to live on Bitcoin, which I think is an inevitable future, you need to be able to make Bitcoin payments that are very fast and very inexpensive. So that's what's pretty exciting to me. And our platform allows consumers to make those payments in a very private and non-custodial manner. So, we don't have a KYC process. We don't take custody of your Bitcoin. That's the stuff that I'm pretty excited about.
Fantastic to have you on board as well. So let's follow with Ben from BTC Sessions.
Hey, so my name's Ben. I run I think one of the largest Bitcoin-only YouTube channels out there. I basically make step-by-step, very simple tutorials around anything Bitcoin. I've recently dropped a step-by-step tutorial walking through setting up your own Lightning node on Umbrel using ThunderHub, and have been diving a little bit more into Lightning now, and I'm finding it very exciting, though. I defer expertise to the guys actually building this stuff as opposed to myself. I just kind of play with it and hopefully try to get the gist and pass that on to others. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's great because you also speak to many people, so you have a similar perspective, making it easy for people. I might get back to you for some help on co-moderation here if I'm falling off the chair. On to Romain
Sure.
from LN Markets.
Yes. Hey, I'm Romain. I'm co-founder of LN Markets. LN Markets is a trading platform built on top of Lightning. So what it enables is instant login, just straight from your wallet, instant deposit and withdrawal of funds, which means that you get a better control of your funds and you can do instant trading just from your wallet. So far, we do a CFD on BTC USD, and we plan to add options soon. And long term, what we want to build is non-custodial instant trading solutions on Lightning. And yeah, what we're really excited about is the opportunity to move funds, instantly with zero fees, and it's something like that has never been done before, to my knowledge, in finance. So that's really exciting. Yeah.
Fantastic. Tim from Microlancer next.
Hi guys. Yeah, I'm Tim from Microlancer. I started developing Microlancer because what I love about Bitcoin and what I love about Lightning really is the sense that you can really create a circular economy kind of outside of the world that currently exists. And that's sort of the dream I'm trying to fulfill with Microlancer.
Excellent. Great to have you on board. On to Zhao from OpenNote. Can you hear us? I think I've seen him. Okay, then we continue maybe with Joshua instead, or Ben Ark. Is Ben Ark there? Okay, Ben Ark missing. Joshua, can you hear us? I think you're on board now. Okay,
hey,
perfect.
Everyone. It's such an honor to be surrounded by such an amazing group of people. I just got to first say, it's really, I just love the amount of stuff that's silently happening on Lightning, while all these alts are getting a lot of attention because of the pumponomics. The Lightning stuff is just epic. When you see it working, and people go, "Oh, why use Lightning?" and you're like, "Wow, this is amazing! I get to send pre-confirmed Bitcoin in an instant." And it's wild. I love I've been working with some of the stuff that Ben Ark's making over at LN Bits, and it's so cool. So yeah, I just want to say that, and we can't wait to get Lightning Network back on Vaultoro. We were the first exchange to implement Lightning Network back in like 3 years ago or something. It was really reckless, but it worked. And we were one of the biggest nodes for a little bit, but then we upgraded the whole system and had to just take it down for a little bit. But we will get back onto bringing Lightning in. And what the beautiful thing with Lightning is, I'll say it again, is that that you don't, like, as a centralized exchange, users wouldn't have to trust us as a party that holds their funds, because they can just snipe an order out of the order book by paying a Lightning transaction, and it would just quickly smash it into the order book and buy some bullion, because we trade between gold and allocated gold and Bitcoin, and then be able to sell that gold back for Lightning Bitcoin again. And so these are just such beautiful things to do, and I'm really looking forward to some of the more sort of atomic swap stuff as well later on. But yeah, Lightning all the way. Thanks very much, everyone, for all your great work.
Great, Josh. Thanks. Okay, so do we have Chas here from the Lightning Junkies podcast? Not yet. Okay, so those are missing. Ben is missing. Okay, all right, then we kick it off. So thank you again, all the speakers. Really great to have you. And I have a first question, which is, so a lot of people still think Lightning is really just beta, reckless, experimental, high-risk stuff under development. What is your perspective on that? Is it really just an experiment so far, or are we getting closer to, say, something that can and should be used, or do you see it that it's already super usable and totally safe, or whatever safe means? But yeah, that's my question, because I think many people have that as well. When they look at it, they want to know, okay, so what is this? Is this actually, does this work? Let's start in the same order, maybe, with Alex, René, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, I guess #reckless is the name of the game since the beginning. I think it depends on like the use case. So like one thing I've noticed that merchants do, or even exchanges potentially, is that if they're worried about their risk of using Lightning, what they do is they remove their hot wallet funds and just sit on a limited amount of outbound liquidity. So as like if you're a merchant and you're receiving money, you don't just allow that to pile up in your Lightning channels. You push it back out to somebody else. You push it back out to the exchange. You push it back out to like using a submarine swap, and you push it into your cold wallet. And so that makes it like not really matter as much like how secure the hot wallet is. It's because you've kind of scoped your risk. And I do think it is totally valid to worry about the hot wallet risk, and we need way more work on reducing that risk. One thing I think will be cool is if we could kind of make like a warm wallet situation where you use SegWit to kind of pre-commit funds, and potentially with Taproot coming, you use Moosig to kind of pre-commit funds with people, but you don't necessarily keep those funds online. They're just pre-committed to other people, and then when you need them to come online, they can come online instantly because you've signed with a like a quorum of other people, or maybe just one other person. And those are just kind of like the kinds of tools that we would need for like the value to scale up hugely. Currently, I think you do have to be careful. It is made more for paying on the lower end of things, and there is a risk, and you should think like carefully about how much risk you want to take on.
Would you mind sharing what you think is a good size for a Lightning payment these days?
I always like to go back to like the original sizing, which was that a channel would be 0.1677215 as the max size, and then you would make a payment no larger than around a quarter of that, like maybe 4 million Satoshis. And everything is denominated in Bitcoin, so the max kind of payment size in real value terms is going to be volatile. But I think that's like a good way to think about like what the max size would be. Is like 4 million is a very large payment, and then a smaller division of that is more reasonably sized. So like 1 million is more reasonable. 100,000 should be no problem. That's kind of like my scale.
Okay, fantastic. Let's follow with René.
Yeah. So let me be a little bit of the devil's advocate. If you think about the Lightning Network, sending out an onion takes time, so at least a second usually, because there's network I/O between channels communicating. And then on every channel, you have a certain probability that the payment might fail. And if the payment fails, the entire onion fails. So then you have to try another path. And if you try to pay frequently on the Lightning Network with pretty reasonable amounts, so Alex just mentioned something like 100,000 Satoshi. I think Christian has showed that in 5% of the cases, you're going to be trying more than 1 minute until the payment is finally delivered. So now imagine yourself being in a store, right? You stand at the cash register and you want to pay with Lightning. And 1 out of 20 customers has to pay over 1 minute until the payment arrives, or until you get a message that the payment would not be arriving. And you cannot cancel the payment. So everybody behind you has to wait. I want to see the store who is adopting this as a technology. So to answer your initial question, I would say it's still experimental. I think we have solutions and ideas to fix those problems. But as long as those problems exist, I think it's mainly for Bitcoin nerds and people who are excited about this to play around with it and to find those issues in order to give developers the chance to develop or to improve upon them.
Great, thanks. Follow with Ken, and then Ben, and then Romain. And again, maybe just for the start, before we get into too much detail, like for someone that's an outstanding person, how do you see Bitcoin? How Lightning? Would you say it's already useful or still very, very early stage?
Yeah, so I think it's still early stage, but it depends on the problem that you're solving. So where, what we see with our customers right now is there's people in the core Bitcoin community that are excited to spend Bitcoin and use Lightning Network. But we've also found that Lightning Network actually solves real problems for real people that may not have anything to do with Bitcoin. So a lot of our customers are in Latin America and Africa, and they don't necessarily have the ability to make a purchase at an e-commerce merchant. So for example, there's a lot of folks in Africa, they want Netflix, they want Spotify, they can't make these payments, right? Or somebody else I met recently, they wanted to buy a PlayStation 5 and ship it to Nigeria. And they couldn't do that because if you're in Nigeria, it really doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't get a payment card with more than $100 on it, right? So so he was like, oh, I'm gonna have to wire money to my sister in Florida, and she's gonna have to buy it for me and then ship it over, and there's just this nightmare. So for some people, they see this option of like, okay, I can actually send money across a border to complete a transaction. And for example, with our product, you can get a card with $1,000 and load that via the Lightning Network. So for people like that, hey, sending some money over Lightning, even if the payment fails, even if it takes 5 minutes, they have to try 3 times. That's far less a hassle than what they would otherwise go through to make some of these purchases. But say, for those of us who are in more developed countries, it's less of a, it seems much more inconvenient. Like you said, it's, if you're online, you have to wait a minute, and everyone's waiting behind you, right? Like that's a huge inconvenience. So I really think it's a matter of what's the problem you're solving and who are you solving the problem for. And if it actually solves a need, people will onboard and they'll put up with some of that friction. They'll put up with some of the failures because it's just far superior to what they already have access to.
Thanks. So on to Ben, and depending on how much time you have left, decide whether you want to extend a little bit and maybe share some more.
Yeah. Okay. So my general thoughts, and this is coming from a position of I'm basically living on Bitcoin at this point. And so I utilize Lightning in a few different ways. One of the ways is I have somebody that helps me with my show notes a few times a week, and I just pay him per episode, and I pay all via Lightning Network, and that works like a charm. I utilize things like Bitrefill and other websites to get gift cards online using Lightning Network. There's some other services that I use using Lightning Network. I also use Lightning, which I just started doing. I connected my node to what's it called? It's the streaming. It's connected in Breeze Wallet as an option for people to stream audio version of the podcast and then pick a sats per minute that they're willing to pay. So I can see live streaming sats coming into my node. So there's a number of incredibly useful things that I enjoy using Lightning for every day. And for those low cost transactions, I find it very useful as opposed to using on-chain and having to, deal with fees that can be quite high if I hit the right time or the wrong time rather. I'm given kind of the nature of, I guess, commerce in general right now. The standing in a brick and mortar store, having to wait for a payment to go through is likely to be less frequent nowadays then perhaps later on when Bitcoin becomes more ubiquitous. But I find it very useful. I also like the idea of exchanges adding Lightning as an option for deposits and withdrawals, given that with the unpredictability of on-chain fees and increased usage, some exchanges are just setting like a default flat rate for Bitcoin withdrawals, which can kill you, right? Especially for the new user that's coming on and they're trying to do a withdrawal and they get slapped with the equivalent of like a $15, $20 withdrawal. I think having optionality with stuff like that is fantastic. In terms of scariness of using it, it depends how you're using it. I have no problem with people using a custodial solution if they're just playing with a few bucks here and there and experimenting. If you're dealing with a little bit more than that and you're a little wary, then you can use something like Breeze or Phoenix, where it's not fully custodial. Or if you want to get into the weeds, then you can start diving into running your own nodes. So different use cases for different people. And in general, I don't think it's too scary for newbies to dive in. It just depends at which level they're going to experiment.
Awesome, great. So we have next Romain.
Yes, I think it's still indeed, the early days. I think that's why, for example, on LN markets, we implemented some trading limits. So basically, you cannot have more than 1 million sats, per account. In order to avoid any major problem or loss of funds or anything, in order to keep experimenting. And I would say that so far it's been pretty good overall. Even if it's early stage, we've done something like 300,000 Lightning transactions so far. We have people using it every day. We've had a huge growth, more and more people, and even people that find out about Lightning, when they want to create an account and trade on LN markets. Even when sometimes it's true, there can be like routing issues or liquidity issues in the network. And if it's the case and people really want to solve that problem, they can open a direct channel to us, which makes it very easy to move funds directly. So last thing I want to add is that things move fast in Lightning. Recently, we can see it by the unexpected high number of people showing up tonight. I think when you look at the growth of Lightning, that's the same. And what's cool is that in parallel, you've got companies building more and more cool stuff. Infrastructure companies like Lightning, we are built on LND, and they're adding new services by the day, that make it easier to use Lightning. So overall, you have to be cautious, but it works fine.
Awesome. Okay. So we go maybe on to Joshua. If any of the other speakers may have arrived by now, there is still missing Zhao from OpenNode. Please say hi. Ben Arik, Tim from Paywall.link, Chas from the Lightning Network Junkies podcast, Pollofeed and Lightning Network stores. Just reach out. So Joshua, how do you see this whole thing? You've been in the Lightning space for a long time. And my dad was just telling me, where are the girls? So I have one here behind me. I don't know if you can see it. It's my background. So yeah, let us know. What do you think? Is Lightning ready for the masses, or will it never work and fail horribly as an experiment? And the DeFi is here to save us.
I agree with a lot of the speakers that it depends on the use case. I don't think the use case is going to a shop and paying for a coffee. Yeah, if Room 77, rest in peace, accepts.
Hey, it's going to be reopened, I heard, no?
Oh, yeah? Oh, man, that'd be really, really good. I'd be there with bells on. But if really the use case for us, for instance, is we have a blog and we're posting constantly articles on that blog. And at the end of it, in random blogs, we post little Lightning faucets for people to go in. And Ben R coded it and Fiat Jeff coded it for us, and people can go in there and just search around for, and look through these articles and then just suck some sats out from these blogs. So it's a great way of incentivizing people to just scour around the website and have a look and, do some treasure hunting at the same time. This sort of stuff is just beautiful because it's really, 10 sats at a time, 100 sats at a time, that sort of thing. The thing that does worry me is that people that pull these sats will never be able to close the channel because they're such small, tiny micron amounts. What you hope is that they just pass it on and send it forward and stay in the ecosystem. So that's really where the hope is, not to go on chain. And then, that'll also stop all this crazy FUD about mining being too environmentally, like that every Bitcoin transaction is, calculated by some sort of mining hash expenditure, which surely it eventually is, but it is one way of stopping this nonsense FUD by saying that the Lightning Network is quite environmentally friendly because you're not directly attaching that mining power. But yeah, I think it's the use cases. So for us, that's a really great use case. For another one is streaming streamers to be able to accept payments and trigger little animations on screen, like they do on is it Twitch? No, what is that called? The game streaming service. Yeah, and these sorts of things can be done now by just sticking up a QR code, and it's just so beautiful, and it works so well. So I think these are the use cases that will bring us to mainstream adoption a lot quicker, as people want to stop giving a tax or a cut away, but they can also program a cut to certain people, so they could code a nice way to split these payments between the producer, the person doing the show notes, and stuff like that. And so, it's like an accounting system all in one. It's beautiful. So I think these sorts of things will head us towards mainstream adoption before bricks and mortar get on board. And this is an internet currency. It's when I go to London, I pay in pounds. When I go to America, I pay in USD, Australian AUD. And when I go on the internet, I pay with Bitcoin. And that's what it's there for. And I don't think we should be pushing that much for like bricks and mortar. I think it's fun and all, but at the end of the day, the low-hanging fruit is definitely online, and yeah.
Okay, so I just want to go through a quick, like four little favorite apps of myself. I have made a list of 20 apps that I will share in an article in the chat. So the first one is Lightning Junkies podcast by Chas, who might join later. And it's a great place for beginners to just get an introduction and see what's going on. A lot of fantastic interviews there. I really can recommend to tune in. And the second one is what you also mentioned here, Josh, before, is the Alan TechSpot. I love it because I can send Satoshis inside the Telegram messenger around the world with, like a one-line command, basically. It's beautiful, and I use it all the time to pay people abroad. And then there's the Microlancer. Tim, you're going to come next here after me then. Really great. I love this platform. They're like people from all around the world that do little tasks. You can outsource stuff. Fantastic place to spend Satoshis and actually use Bitcoin as a currency. And if that doesn't do the job, you could also use Spendle, which is a little startup by Visa even, and now they're integrated with a couple of big firms here even. You can top up with Lightning, a virtual Visa credit card, debit card, and pay almost anywhere. And also a trick that I found very useful is fixed float. I can send Bitcoin with Lightning, and then in case there is a merchant that doesn't accept Lightning, but other currencies like shitcoins, like Litecoin or whatever, I can convert it quickly there and still pay with Lightning and don't have to touch these shitcoins. So those are my favorites. And back to the show. And Tim, I don't know if anyone else joined, and then I think we just have an open discussion. There are some questions in now. I guess you're all burning to discuss with each other. So Tim, lastly on this round for you, what's your view on this?
Yeah, so when I started Microlancer, my idea was to sort of test how usable Lightning would be. And, I really didn't have like a plan going in terms of like how I think people would be using it or using the platform. And I was more experimenting and wanting to see what would organically develop on the platform. And it actually turned out in a way that that kind of surprised me. So a lot of the users put up tasks and do jobs that are really for small amounts of satoshis, like 100 sats or 200 sats, or, or 500 sats. And it really got me thinking, this idea that, one man's dust is another man's treasure, right? So all of these tiny transactions really don't make any sense, like on chain, right? And what you end up doing is you exclude like a huge chunk of the global economy, because there are places in the world, like you could think of Venezuela or where any of these countries where tiny transactions are just not are actually pretty big in those countries. So I realized that it's really fulfilling a need there. And when you look at it in those terms, it's not so much a matter of, is Lightning ready? It's a matter of like, they need something and it fulfills that. So I think it has a ton of value there. Of course, people do have to be patient and they have to know like these corner cases and edge cases with Lightning. But if you just use Lightning, like let's say in a custodial way, a lot of people get angry and they're like, they're like a Bitcoin maximalists and they say run your own node and do all this stuff. But I think it's still one step better than what they had before, right? So it's a progressive thing. And I think what's really nice about how the Lightning kind of ecosystem is developing is like you have different interfaces and different ways of using Lightning for different types of people, right? So for someone who's non-technical, they can actually get in with using something like LNTXBot or Blue Wallet or Wallet of Satoshi, fully custodial, and they can reap the benefits of Lightning. So that's kind of how I feel right now about Lightning. I think it's totally useful, and it's not perfect, but it's definitely useful.
Anyone want to jump in here?
Can I just ask you a quick question about the design of your escrow service?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how I read the website is I basically send the BTC to you or the Satoshis, and then later you pay the person who offered the task, right?
Correct. That's correct.
So there would be the chance that the person who wants to receive the money actually sends you a payment hash already, and you create an invoice, so somebody sets up a route to you, but they don't give you the money, right? And only if the task is fulfilled, you could actually set up a route to the person who is supposed to pay, to receive the money, and then you get the pre-image and everything settles. Right, so in that case, you wouldn't hold the money. The money would just be locked in HTLCs.
Yes, absolutely. That was actually the solution I was working on a couple of months ago. But I hit a roadblock where the HTLC. I mean, you don't want to keep these transactions open for a very long time.
I agree.
Yeah. So some of the tasks were actually pending for months, and it didn't make sense over the Lightning Network, and that's still a problem we're trying to solve. I actually came up with a possible solution, which actually reaches outside of Lightning, which is to use another network, like let's say Liquid, to sort of hold the funds and just use Lightning on the edges of Liquid. Anyways, that's theoretical.
Well, you could also wait for PTLCs, because then you have pre-images that add up. So then you can actually have you as a trigger for completing the payment.
Yes, that would be very interesting. I need to learn more about that.
Yeah, I mean, since we don't have it yet, it doesn't make sense to know already. But I think that's a pretty cool way of doing escrow stuff. But I was just curious how you were thinking about it. Thanks.
Yeah, feel free to just have a chat among friends and colleagues, and we could also take on some questions. Well, I'll leave it up to you.
Well, it looks like there are some questions in the chat here. We may want to jump into those if that sounds good with you guys.
Yep, go for it.
So the first one there is, how should somebody prepare before setting up a node? You know, how to think about managing a node, what software stack to use, how to set up the networking, and then a follow-up to that. You know, how would things change over time as institutions start to participate in the Lightning Network? So let's start on the first step. You know, what do you guys think in terms of a great way to start planning to set up a node?
How should you start planning to set up your node? I think it does depend a bit on what implementation you're using. For L&D, I think one of the most important things to think about is your disk reliability, because that's something that people may not realize when they get into Lightning, is that in Bitcoin, if you lose your wallet file, you know, maybe you delete your app from your phone or something, you've still got this seed that you wrote down, and that restores all of your on-chain coins. But in Lightning, it doesn't work that way. You're responsible for storing your own state. That's kind of how the scalability works. And so if you lose that state, you can be in trouble. And especially if you have a bunch of funds on there, you really want to make sure that you're not on like an SD card. Like some people set up a Raspberry Pi and they're on the SD card, and then the SD card can't handle a bunch of writes that are Bitcoin Core, or with LND, SD card fails, and then they're in big trouble. So number one is that disk reliability. I would definitely recommend at least using SSD, and then I'd recommend using more than one, in a RAID configuration, so you have redundancy there. Other implementations have different ways that they can deal with backups, but LND requires that you have that consistent disk. And if you want to think about UTXO management, I actually like to do my on-chain work outside of the Lightning implementation completely. I just think that a Lightning wallet is really good at doing Lightning things. Doesn't necessarily mean it's great at doing on-chain things. Maybe it doesn't deal with multi-sig, or it doesn't have coin selection, or all sorts of cool features that you would want in an on-chain wallet. They might not appear in your Lightning wallet. So when I make channels, I actually use my hardware wallet to make the channels, and I externally fund them. And then I keep those two worlds separate. That's going to change a little bit with the new model for channels called anchor channels. In anchor channels, you're going to be responsible for keeping some funds on chain at all times in order to pay for transaction fees in the worst case scenario that you force close channels. But generally, I think it's for the main bulk of funds, I would keep them separated out. Keep them in a hard wallet. Keep them in a hardware wallet or a cold wallet, whatever you have as your normal cold wallet security, and don't keep them on chain on the Lightning node itself. Yeah, I have a guide on my GitHub called run-lnd, which is kind of a cheat sheet of setting up a node from scratch. How to compile Bitcoin Core, how to compile LND, how to set up Tor, and different options depending on different use cases. I do like to in a lot of scenarios, I do like to run a node in the cloud, or I used to like to run it behind Tor, because I think a routing node, one problem that people have is they're just running a routing node on their desktop, and it's not having great reliability. So what that results in is we have a lot of nodes on the network, But if they're just run by people on their desktops, that's probably meaning that they're they're closing their wallet at some point, or maybe their computer, they turn it off for the night or something. That's not like yielding a great user experience to people who are trying to pay through those nodes. So that kind of makes it so that only a subsection of the nodes who are like designing more for high reliability, for kind of like being infrastructure backbone type of nodes, are doing the routing of the payments. And then it can be a little bit difficult for the pathfinding algorithm to kind of sort out like, oh wait, these nodes are not really set up for routing, and these nodes are, because we have a peer-to-peer network. Anybody can join. They all kind of look the same.
Anyone want to jump in here?
I'm interested in how Taproot brings Lightning Network forward. We're getting close to activation, and one of the promises is, I guess, a little bit more space on the main chain, sort of, and but for Lightning Network, how that helps, and if anyone's sort of working before that happens on that side of the shoreline.
Just quick, René, you were saying anyway. So I think René and Romain, you're a bit short in time, right? So maybe we have you two next. So yeah, René.
So just to reiterate on what Alex said, I would basically back every single word of it. I think the most crucial thing indeed is the disk. When writing Mastering the Lightning Network, and I posted 2 links to the chat, this text or these chapters are almost complete already for review already. So there you can find instructions for all implementations, how to run your node, and some best practices and things to consider. So that might be worthwhile looking at. With respect to the Taproot question, I think the main point that we get from Taproot, from my personal perspective, is that we have the ability to have PTLCs instead of HTLCs. What this does is that instead of committing to some pre-image via a hash function, we can basically commit to some point on the elliptic curve that is usually responsible for supporting us to create digital signatures. And the great thing about this is that we can introduce a whole bunch of new features in the Lightning Network that help us to get our user experience up. So one example that we can do is we can cancel payments. So as I mentioned before, when you send out an onion and nothing happens, you are lost. You have to basically wait this out. But with PTLCs, there's a schema where you can basically cancel the onion. Similarly, we have escrow services, as mentioned before. And yeah, I think these are great things that will help us a lot. Also, there's a little bit more privacy with respect that the payment hash or the payment point is changing for every hop. So in case the channel breaks, you cannot correlate the routed payment necessarily to your payment hash. So I think Taproot is actually a very useful and huge improvement for Lightning Network.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention about Taproot, I mean, if you're talking about just like the soft fork that also includes the Schnorr signatures, is the soft fork will enable in the future the Museg way of aggregating signatures together in a way that fits well with Lightning channels. Because one thing we've seen is that 2 of 2 multisig on the chain really stands out as being unique to Lightning channels, which gives a big pointer to oh, these funds are related to some channel somewhere. And if we want to increase the privacy of the network, one of the most obvious ways that we can do that is to reduce those 2 signatures into 1 signature, and to also save cost on closing. Instead of having to include the signature and the public key from both parties, that we can collapse that to only 1 public key and 1 signature. And the thing that I think could be really cool is we're kind of making building blocks towards multi-party channels, where instead of just having 2 people in the channel, you could have 10 people in a channel. And when you combine that with the signature aggregation, so if you're doing this kind of signature aggregation where you have where you're collapsing two signatures into one, well, you can do that with n signatures. So unlimited numbers of signatures can be collapsed into one, which can kind of like extend the scaling runway on chain for how like Lightning represents itself.
Okay, so I think Romain, you have to opt out soon. Is that right?
Yes.
Would you be able to because I'm actually interested to if you're able to demo your site a little bit and the functionality basic, would that work?
Yeah. Well, I'm on an iPad, so I don't think it's the easiest way to do it. But maybe as a follow-up on because there was another question with it, which was how does the dynamic change with the rise in institutional participation? I think we're not there yet. I mean, having like big institutions like big hedge funds or crypto funds ready to invest large amounts and to clear large amounts on the Lightning Network. But I think there are good signs of increased institutional participation. And I think when we talk to some of them, there's a Electrum wallet that has added Lightning support. And it's something that makes them comfortable because for some funds, they're already used to manage Bitcoin funds with Electrum internally, and they have their process in place, like risk management procedures and etc. And I think it's at least some of them felt comfortable using Lightning through Electrum. And also, as Alex said, I guess what would be an amazing feature that we wait is the fact that multiple parties can interact through channels and something called channel factories, and this would be I think a game changer for institutional players because it will enable them to move funds much more easily. Yeah, that's it for me. And in terms of demo, so it's not so easy like that, but you can just go on lnmarkets.com and it's very simple with like any wallet, and especially like on Breeze and Phoenix. What's nice is that you just need to install Breeze and Phoenix, and there is something called LN URL, meaning that you can instantly log in. You just need to scan a QR code. You scan a QR code and basically you sign a message with your node. So your wallet, which means that there's no personal information, nothing. You're just authenticated straight to your wallet, and I think the easiest way is with Breeze because if you have funds on Breeze, there is a store. You just click on LN Markets, you're instantly logged in, and you can use funds and trade instantly. So I would say that's the easiest on ramp.
Shall we pick some other questions from the chat?
I have a question for Alex, maybe. Hey, first of all, thanks for the nice conference. I hope you can hear me. And I'm Lightrider. I'm working with Fulmo, and we are operating some routing nodes. And at the moment, I'm trying to do some rebalancing with cron jobs with balance of Satoshi. But I very often have the issue that I get a lot of forced close channels. So sometimes 4 channels within a few hours. And I saw also that other nodes have this problem. And this is really annoying because it is very expensive. And what is wrong there? Why are so many nodes experiencing these forced close channels?
One thing I know that happened very recently is that every node that was peering with Eclair that was not Eclair was doing sorting of HTLCs differently than Eclair was sorting HTLCs. And because they were sorting the HTLCs by different algorithms, the signatures didn't match up. So like Eclair would make an incorrect signature based on the sorting of C Lightning and LND. And whenever that happened, the only outcome that could happen is that it would have to go to chain with the last good signature. So if you were peering with any Eclair node until the very latest version that they just released like a couple days ago, if you ever had more than one HTLC that was happening at the same time that was of value that would sort differently, the channel would always force close. There's also the concept, like a force close wouldn't happen with a normal payment unless the other side is uncommunicative for a long period of time. So maybe you get disconnected from them. But as long as you get disconnected in a reasonable amount of time, or you get reconnected in a reasonable amount of time, you'll be able to work out a resolution for those HTLCs. I might avoid peering with people who are going online and offline, because one thing that can happen is maybe you do a rebalance, or maybe you do a payment and it takes half an hour to complete or something. But your peer is on a desktop and they close their laptop and they don't come online for maybe a week or so. And in that case, you have to force close the channel, because the HTLC kind of times out. It needs to be resolved on the chain. You can't collaboratively fold it back into the local or remote balances. So that's something that I noticed a lot in the early days of using Lightning as well. Like that the different implementations, the way that like they communicate with each other is they don't send the state that they expect the other side to know about. Instead, they send just the components of the state, and then they expect everybody to implement the same exact algorithm. And whenever there's been an error, so it's like if you expect a web page to be rendered exactly the same in Safari that it would be rendered in Internet Explorer and Firefox, there's going to be slight differences. And so in the early days, there were more of those slight differences. And if you're connecting to any client who's older, they're going to have more chance to have one of those differences.
Okay, thanks for the answer. Yeah.
Yeah, open for any question or thing that comes up if anyone has something.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm tuning in from Hong Kong. It's 2 a.m. here. I'm a complete Lightning noob. I literally just got my first ever Lightning wallet probably 2 days ago, and I think it's incredible. My questions are about, so they're going to be really noob questions. So I'm sorry if like they're way below everyone's level here. You guys are already talking about things that I don't understand. But just so that I can explain to other people, because I already onboarded like 5 people to Lightning Network today that have never used Bitcoin at all. They're no coiners, but what I've done is like, instead of when I need to pay people, instead of saying I'll send you fiat, I'm saying download Blue Wallet and I'll give you sats instead. And that seems to hook everyone straight away. So my question is on how the Lightning Network works. So when I'm is what basically is happening is, am I sending Bitcoin from layer 1 to Lightning, and then there I can transact as much as I want back and forth until I decide to send it back to my Bitcoin layer 1 wallet? Is that what's happening?
Well, I mean, what's happening, like literally, is that you and somebody else have signed transactions that you're updating. So you're saying the balance before was 1 to me and 0 to you, and now the balance is 0 to me, 1 to you, and you're updating those transactions. And those transactions are Bitcoin transactions that are not confirmed yet. They're just kind of like unbroadcast transactions. And if you ever want to close the channel without the cooperation of the peer, you have this transaction that you could just send to the Bitcoin network, and then it has that output that is, okay, 1 goes to me or 0 goes to me, and that's how you get your money if you want to go back into the layer 1. And there's another way of going back into layer one where you collaborate with your peer. So you have these transactions, and that allows you to say, well, I know that I have this transaction, and you know that you have a transaction. So why don't we just collaborate to make a new transaction that doesn't have all of the expense and time locks and complexity of the versions that we have right now. And that's kind of the difference between cooperatively closing a channel and force closing a channel. But really, you don't have the money in like a separate blockchain or anything. You have the money in the kind of future promise of being able to confirm this transaction on layer one, and then that becomes just regular layer one function.
Is it? I'm sorry. Is it terrible if I say I didn't understand any of that? So
yeah. Maybe I think I was assuming maybe that you knew it, like that you knew like, okay, the wire protocol of Bitcoin, which is that you have this like these transactions that go into the blocks. But
I think I know. So let me tell you how I did it. So I have I use BottlePay, which is a UK based exchange / Lightning wallet, and then I got everyone else to download Blue Wallet.
Okay.
And, well, so I'm not running a Lightning node or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I was describing is how they do it, because you don't have anything really. I mean, BottlePay has the money, and the Blue Wallet has the money. But the way that they do it, so you're a customer of theirs, you're an account in their system, and the way that they kind of settle in a non-custodial way with random people, like Blue Wallet and BottlePay don't need to have a relationship with each other. All they need to have is channels that are connected to the network, and that's how that kind of gets settled. So you're kind of like, it's kind of like you have an account at Coinbase or an account at Bitfinex or something. And then when you need to make a deposit, they go and look at how much balance you have, and then they settle it using either, like I think Blue Wallet has a non-custodial version, but the funds in Lightning, they keep as custodial. And then BottlePay, I think, is just purely custodial.
Okay, so I'm moving countries, but I'm going to run my first node, and I would like to also run a Lightning node, and that's what you're talking about, closing channels, opening channels, having liquidity. That's when you run your own node versus like letting BottlePay be the custodian of the Lightning node that you use, right?
Right, that's like you're talking directly to the network yourself versus like you could run your own email server, and then you could send and receive emails, and you don't need like Gmail. Or you can use Gmail, and then they, are acting on your behalf. When somebody sends you an email, they actually send Google the email, and then Google gives you the email. So it's kind of like hosted versus self-hosted.
Okay, so that's what I want to run my own node. I don't want anyone custody, because that's why we're in Bitcoin. I don't want anyone doing shit for me. But I guess I'm a noob, so that's what's happened. But I've onboarded people on Blue Wallet. Yeah, it's better than nothing.
Like LNTX bot, Blue Wallet, BottlePay. In some cases, that can be the easy mode. And if it's not a lot of money, if we're not talking about like your life savings, maybe it's totally cool to just pass sats around, tipin.me, that kind of thing. I worry more from their perspective, because I know BottlePay has had issues with AML KYC restrictions, and it can be difficult to on the provider side of those services actually make them even possible.
Okay.
So I also love custodial wallets for onboarding and just showing how easy and useful it is. Maybe hand it over to René again, since he is well spoken and good to explain, maybe also on a simpler level. So I have used it for quite a bit now and never had an issue really, except that payments fail. Yes, but like, are there any actual attacks happening? Can you report something about that? And maybe also if you want, feel free to explain Lightning to a 5-year-old, because maybe that's a good time right now. So.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I can do the 5-year-old thing, because I will use examples that work for people who are a little bit older than 5 years, but I can try, of course, to basically explain what Alex explained before, right? So the question is, do you know what a multi-signature address is?
I think I do, but I could be, Yeah, I could think I do and not. So
a multi-signature.
Multi-sig as in like a 2 of 3 or a 5 of 7, right?
Or 2 of 2. Right? So 2 of 2. So let's assume the following. I didn't catch your name. Was it Ben? Sorry.
My name is Daniel.
Okay, Daniel. So let's assume you generate yourself a random number, which is your private key, and you use your Bitcoin software to generate the corresponding Bitcoin address or public key. And I do the same. Okay? So you have a key and I have a key. What we can do is we can combine these two to create a multi-signature address.
Sure. We used it 15 times already. But it still works. So, okay, I try. Yeah, hello, internet. Yes, this is a big.
Okay, I'm not sure what's happening right now. Somebody is.
That was not me.
Yeah, I think we were.
Right. So Daniel, let's assume we have this set up, right? So you have your key, I have my key. We create this multi-signature address. So now I take 10 millibitcoin and I send them from my personal Bitcoin address to this multi-signature address. My first question is, who owns these 10 millibitcoins?
I mean, both. If we're sending it to a multi-sig 2 of 2 where it's your address and my address, we both do in a way, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly correct, right? You don't own it because you don't control it, right? If you wanted to send it somewhere, you need my consent.
Yeah, we both need to sign, right? Yeah.
We both need to sign, all right? Okay, so what happens now if we prepare a transaction that sends those 10 millibitcoins back to me and I get a signature from you? But we don't publish this transaction, we keep it private. You have a copy of that transaction, I do have a copy of that transaction. Who owns the funds in this case?
Is that on the Lightning Network?
No, I'm just talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about this following scenario. We created this multi-signature address.
Yeah.
I'm sending it there. And then there's a second transaction that sends it to an address that I control alone. And I have both signatures for it. I've used
you own it. If we both signed it and I sent it to your signature that only you own, then you own it.
Exactly. Especially because you can't do anything on the multi-signature wallet without me. But I, at any point in time, can publish that transaction.
Yeah, if you sent it from yours to our multi-sig and I sign it, if we both sign that back to you, then you own it. I've said it's okay it's your Bitcoin.
Yep. Okay, so now you understood how a payment channel works on the Lightning Network. Because what we do on the Lightning Network and the payment channel is we initially send the money to this multi-signature address. But next time, when I want to pay you, let's say initially I have 10 millibitcoin on my side, but I want to pay you 2 millibitcoin. So what we're doing is we're doing a new transaction where 8 millibitcoin go to an address that I control and 2 go to you. We exchange signatures and we somehow destroy the old transaction, right? I'm not explaining you the details on how we destroy the transaction. There's penalty mechanism, cryptographic protocols in order to ensure that this won't work. But in this way, we just negotiate a new transaction spending from this multi-signature, right? And in this way, we can update the balance in our channel all the time. So we can send back and forth money over and over, right? So if you ask, is Lightning something different than Bitcoin? I will tell you, no, it's Bitcoin. It's just our way of using Bitcoin in a creative way, right? Most certainly not how Satoshi envisioned it, because he was like, hey, make the transaction, sign it, publish it, right? But hey, I mean, you're doing this on your cold storage already anyway, right? You hopefully have an offline device where you prepare the transaction, you sign it, you put it somewhere, and then you broadcast it to the network. So who's stopping us to do it also in the same way?
So I understood that you send 10 milli Bitcoin to the multi-sig and then we both signed to send it back to you. I got lost on the rest of that.
So what I'm saying is, what we can do also is we can make another transaction that sends 8 milli Bitcoin to me and 2 milli Bitcoin to you, and we exchange signatures for that one. So now you own 2 millibitcoin and I own 8 millibitcoin. If we have some way of making sure that the other transaction cannot be published anymore, the initial one.
Okay. Yeah,
and
that would just be just...
We can make that sure, but we would destroy, or we would, we need more time and a little bit of drawing in order to understand how we make that. So I would not do it right now because that would take too much time, but...
No, yeah. Okay. Okay, I think that makes sense.
Right, so but this is the idea of Lightning. This is a payment channel. It's just two people agreeing on how to spend from a multi-signature wallet without publishing the transaction that they sign.
So at what stage do we publish it?
When we close the channel, when we settle.
So what does closing a channel mean?
Closing a channel means that we take all funds back to the chain.
I always think of it like a bar tab. And this is the old school thing of bar tabs. You know, you go in and then you open a bar tab. So you pay a one time right at the end of the night and you're drinking all night long. So you're not having to make a transaction every time. And not only that, I can pay anyone else in the bar through the barman. And this is just the beautiful thing about it.
Does that mean essentially any time that can you unilaterally open a Lightning channel, or does it always have to be you and another signature?
So a payment channel is always between you and somebody else. So you need somebody else to interact with you. Because if I would send, so let's assume I would send this 10 millibitcoin to an address that we both would control, but I don't get the refund transaction. Well, then you can blackmail me. Then you can say, no, I never give you a signature, right? So I need to make sure that I get this initial transaction to send back. That's why we needed the second upgrade. Because otherwise you could have at least collude with miners and modify stuff and do shit. But yeah, I mean, the Lightning Network makes sense if people talk to each other. I mean, it's a peer-to-peer protocol like Bitcoin.
So how does it work when I got Bottle Pay and I have some Bitcoin in my Bottle Pay account and I decide to pay, I just say to someone, hey, get Blue Wallet, I'm going to send you 1,000 sats. Does that mean that Bottle Pay already has an open Lightning channel with Blue Wallet?
Either they have it directly with Blue Wallet or just to the Lightning Network, and then it's being routed through the network. I mean, you have a chain of channels or path of channels. You can basically say, hey, send some Satoshis there, and this person forwards the Satoshis, and that person forwards the Satoshis. Of course, what we need to do is we need to make sure that everybody plays by the rules and not somebody in the middle of the route says, oh, thanks for the Satoshis and runs. But we're doing this with HTLCs to make this atomic. So, I mean, you can read this up. It just works.
So it's kind of like a chain that it just hits the channels until it gets to the end user kind of thing, right? Yeah. It just finds the path to that end user on the Lightning Network.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. Awesome.
It happens the same right now when you type in www.whatever.com. It hits a bunch of nodes on the network, gets routed around until you finally hit the server. It just happens very efficiently. And this efficiency is something that I guess people like Rene are working on, always bettering.
That's awesome. Thank you for that explanation. It's very clear and really helps me understand how it works.
Yeah, and just to clarify that even further, when the internet was first flourishing, some of the routes got lost. So you typed in a website and it never actually reached the endpoint. And a lot of early networks, this is a typical effect. So the hope is that the Lightning Network will grow so big that there's just always that 6 degrees of separation thing where there's always someone that knows the person that you're sending the transaction to. When I say knows, means has an open channel with, and that's why that's one of the FUD points on the Lightning Network is that people think that it'll be centralizing because people want to open a channel with a large node because a lot of people are connected to that one node. But really, if you one thing I find really fascinating is social graphs, and it's quite amazing. Like, for instance, Clubhouse, when that opened, it really wasn't long before you opened this thing, and it was only people on iOS, but every time you downloaded it and gave access to your contact list, it made a social graph to everybody else that's already been downloaded, and instantly, within like a month or something, you already had connections to pretty much everyone. So you would say, invite, you had like 5 invites, invite this person because they've already got 22 contacts in the network, or they've already got, there was the amount of peers that know somebody else in the network happens quicker than most people think. And so my hope is that the Lightning Network will be very, once we have good designers actually designing good UXs, which is already starting to happen, by the way. Some of the apps are fantastic. It will grow very, very quickly to be able to handle a lot more players and connect and payments just work and go through.
Awesome. So if you guys don't mind, I have one other question. So obviously, like I said, I'm new to Lightning Network. I do want to eventually run my own node/Lightning node. But in the meantime, what I thought was, just good for the network. I love Bitcoin. So I want everyone I think Bitcoin is the greatest invention of humanity. I want everyone to use Bitcoin. The Lightning Network's made it really easy to offer up to pay people in sats for things that I would otherwise be paying them in fiat. So it's like an immediate onboarding of a bunch of people. But what else can I do to help grow the Lightning Network other than get someone to download Blue Wallet and send them sats? Is there any, if you guys would be a complete beginner, but who's very keen on doing whatever it takes to get more people to understand and use it, what would you recommend I do?
I'd say, a very useful way to onboard more people, and I think some of you are already doing this, is, produce content about it, about your own experience, about what you're doing, about your journey. And it can be written content, it can be some kind of blog, some kind of newsletter, some kind of podcast, like a podcast on Lightning dedicated to that. It can be anything, but I think that, there's a, from let's say from my own experience, we do a newsletter with LN Market, and we try to reach out to people in the ecosystem, basically because me, I'm not technical. I have a lot of questions and a lot of stuff I'm curious about, like what is the impact on Taproot on Lightning, how can it go, etc. And you just reach out to people, and they are very open and very nice usually, and they always respond, and they help you. And so I guess sharing this to a larger audience is great. And after that, on a more practical perspective, I think that if you wanna also be more part of the network, well, an easy way to join the network, you have wallets like Phoenix, which are really super cool for onboarding, super easy. And if you want to run a node, I think it's Umbrel, for example, is quite simple. Like you just need to buy a Raspberry Pi and a hard drive, and very instantly you can set up your node, and then you really dig in, how it happens on Lightning, like how you can grow your node, be more connected, have more peers, etc. And for example, there's been an article, a friend of us wrote an article about routing on Citadel 21 magazine. And I think it's great, and it got, a lot of attention, and Jimmy Song talked about it in his newsletter. And I think just basically producing content about your own experience is the best way to make more people, get on board to Lightning. Yeah,
and another thing that I really like is, honestly, it's amazing. Once I found it, is Fiat Jefferson and Ben Ark's lnbits.com, lnbits.com, and you can attach your full node to that. But if you have a look at the manage extensions, you've got this amazing list of ability to create a paywall for content, have a live stream thing, is what I mentioned before, is putting up a QR code and triggering animated GIFs on screen. So if you run a live screen gaming thing, point of sale terminals, events managing, like sell tickets and all sorts of stuff through Lightning.
Yeah, unfortunately that didn't work. I tried using it for this event and it crashed right after. But it's really, I love it also. Yeah, if it
yeah, I mean,
it becomes more stable. It's an experiment right now, right?
It's definitely still. I mean, it says right up the top, still in beta. But yeah, I mean, this is, and the other thing is, if you have skills to help the network, you've got to look at the skills that you have. You know, if you're good at design or graphics, maybe make some graphics for, or try to join a GitHub where people need some UX, or if you're maybe good at I don't know, making memes, do that and be part of the meme war. But
meme tards versus meme factory.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of stuff, but at the end of the day, you know, it comes down to just using and having fun with it.
I'm not sending people in the wrong direction by saying download Blue Wallet and take, you know, and let's use that to transfer sats between us.
No, I mean, I love that. It's one of my favorite wallets. It's great.
I also like Moon Wallet with 2U. It's a project from Latin America. Really great experience. And then obviously Wallet of Satoshi is like the simplest one. There are a lot of good. And Hexa Wallet also is very interesting what these guys are doing. I have a question. What can someone explain? So what are the big steps necessary from a technical development point of view that need to happen next for the protocol to be more reliable? So how do you see that? What's going to happen in the next years?
Well, I don't know if you've heard about anchor channels.
No, I'm also not too technical, but I'll try to follow and remember.
Well, so that's being rolled out right now. I think Eclair has some code in there to do it, and LND 0.13, the next release that should be coming out it's in a release candidate right now, should be coming out soon. That has it as a default. So that's a totally new format for channels. And it addresses a problem of reliability when it comes to force closing. So the current issue with force closing is that the fees can't be adjusted. So you have the signed copy of the transaction, and you know that should be good as gold. But what if the chain fees when you sign that are different from when you want to put it on the chain? Then you kind of have a problem. Like the chain fee market could have changed. So the anchor channels is a fix to that. It says, okay, let's put these special outputs on the channel that are separate from everything else. And the only purpose that these outputs have is that we're going to use them to respend those funds and then by proxy increase the funds of the parent transaction so that it becomes more attractive to the miners to include this transaction into the block. And now that's called CFPP, CPFP, and that's going to kind of increase the effective fee of the parent and address that problem to a large degree, although it's an ongoing process. And it has a kind of two impacts. One impact is it makes the whole system more secure because you really want that unconfirmed transaction to be reliable. Like that's your money. That's the worst case scenario. Your peer is not cooperating with you. You want to get out of the system. You want to be able to exit. So in order to exit, you need the fee to be correct. And there's also a time element. Like there's a timer ticking down on every one of these transactions. So if you let the timer run out, and you could lose money. So the anchor channel allows you to avoid that scenario. And then it has another positive effect, which is that force closes tend to be very expensive because not only are they bigger, they're more complex transactions that have to add all this data about the time locks and different restrictions that are going to be put on the way that they close. So that represents itself as more bytes on the chain, which means more money that you spend. But not only that, the design of these signed transactions took into account the fact that you might not be able to adjust the transaction fee. So what they did is they made a very conservative estimate of the transaction fee. They put a very high transaction fee on all of these transactions because in theory, we're not going to the chain with them. So you're not actually spending that money. But if you do go to chain with them, you have these very conservative fees, meaning you're paying a lot of money. Whereas with the anchors, you can be a lot more economical. You can say, okay, we're going to just put enough money so that we can be accepted into the mempool. And then once we're in the mempool, we will use the anchors to change the fees that are ultimately paid on these forced closes. So that's going to increase the reliability, increase the security in the next year or so, I'd say.
Thanks, Alex. That's really, really, really fascinating.
Awesome. I think we have maybe some more questions in the chat. Josh, do you have something maybe?
I mean, one of the things for me is that I really was hoping that Lightning would be further down the road now in terms of network effect. And I feel the biggest issue is people love the on-chain stuff because they're used to it and they know it and they understand it. And making that hop is basically building a whole new network effect. Even though Bitcoin has such a large network effect as in terms of brand recognition and everything else, the Lightning Network is starting kind of from square one because you need to onboard and teach people how to use it and all of this stuff. And this is where the amazing community of developers and designers come in to try to obfuscate this complexity away and melt it into one. Ethereum's having the same issue with layer 2 stuff, trying to move people across. So, anytime there's a layer 2, people we need to really focus on that fluidity of usage, so that when someone comes in, it really doesn't need an instruction manual. It should just be really intuitive. And I think, there, like Blue Wallet really is nicely intuitive, and other wallets, Zap as well. So it is coming along, but I would really love to see that network effect. The other thing is it's hard to tell the network effect. I saw a link here in the chat before to kind of like a visualization of the network. If anyone has a good one, that's the latest one. These are kind of really nice to see, these visualizations, because then people can see how large the network is and get excited about it, because it's kind of hard to know how together how many people are using this thing. They just always hear FUD about it, like, oh, Lightning doesn't work, or it's not working. But in reality, there's so many people already using it. But it's hard to sort of see that action.
Can I speak to that really briefly?
Yeah, we'll actually put all the links in a document and provide it to you. All the links that have been posted in the chat here, so we have them.
Oh, amazing! The only thing I was going to say is that's something that there's a bunch of us in this room right now that we mostly hang out on Clubhouse. We've created some some Telegram groups. We run rooms. I run rooms through Bitcoin Magazine to try to onboard people who are comfortable with Bitcoin but have never run a Lightning node and don't really understand it. And it's been really, really interesting and really, really fun to go through that process. And one of the things that we found is there's a I think it's called Cheesebot or Cheese Robot that we use in the Telegram channel, and it basically has allowed us to gamify this process of creating this smaller community within the larger Lightning network. So the links that I was posting and Master Yoda was posting, graph.kycjelly.com, and so we're basically constantly checking the graph of all of our nodes within our community, and we're competing. And I'm working with SuredBits. I created an oracle on SuredBits. I'm about to roll out a DLC. So I think there's things like that really help expand that network effect and get people excited about it. But
yeah, awesome. Could you post the link to some of the things like the whatever it's called, Clubhouse and such?
Yeah, totally. So there is currently a redirect URL which I will post, which redirects to the current Telegram group that we have, which is this one. Oh wait, hold on, sorry. I'll post it in the group in a second. There we go.
Okay, cool.
That just goes to the Telegram group. I work with Bitcoin Magazine and run rooms there, and then there's like Rajwinder is in this call. He has another Telegram group, so I would start.
Yeah, awesome. We'll make sure to link them all. If you just leave them in the chat here, we'll pick them out. Actually, our French intern, she will take all the links and run some sets. We had one question earlier also here from someone named Björn Ducorn. I'm not sure if he's still with us, but maybe for the record, I don't know if we touched it. So should you consider the price appreciation of BTC when deciding how big your channels should be? A 4 million set channel is one thing, a 40K and a whole different thing, 1 mil, 2 mil, etc.
Well, it might also change like your own perception of the money, because like if your total stack is increasing, then what was once very seemed like a lot of money is now seeming like less, because it maintains its proportionality to your total stack. But I do think it is you do want to keep tabs on how much money you've got in there. I think some people look at Ellen Big, that they put in how much, maybe 2 million in the beginning, and then it became 30 million. So I think that's also been contributing to kind of Lightning Network's overall growth in a big way, is that people let it ride, and that increased the total capacity of the network in total US dollar terms a lot.
I don't know if you had the chance yet, Rene. You had this little Twitter conversation with Alex for something I don't understand, but maybe you want to talk about that.
So I think LND uses a score to rank Lightning Network nodes and help operators to say, hey, connect with those, they have a good score, and it's called the Boss score. And I'm just curious how it works, because as far as I understand, it's not documented anywhere, so I can guess a little bit how it works. And then the question, of course, is it really useful? Because there's obviously a lot of things to consider when you want to make routing decisions. So yeah, I mean, since Alex is here, and I think the name Boss score comes from his last name, he's the person to ask.
Yeah, the Boss score, that's kind of actually an older project. So I haven't worked on it for a year plus. I haven't had anything to do with it for a long time. But originally, Lightning Labs had kind of two products, where we were working on L&D, and then we had this thing called the app. I don't think it ever even had a name. It was just like the Lightning app. And the challenge we had in the Lightning app is that we wanted to make a more distributed way that the users, who would be like mobile users, somebody on the phone, would connect to the network. We didn't want them to connect to a server. We didn't want them, and that's a common pattern. Like if you use Moon Wallet or if you use Breeze Wallet, Async, they are all connecting to kind of like a server node, maybe called LSP node, and they run it. And then they can kind of guarantee a good user experience to those mobile users and say, okay, we'll make sure that this node has good liquidity and things like that, and it's going to be around. But we wanted to kind of be more ambitious and say, let's just connect to the broad network, and let's just see if we can connect randomly to this massive peers and start making payments. And we saw, especially in those early days, that payment success and node availability wasn't necessarily there yet. And it makes sense that Breeze and these other guys are connecting to one node. That's how there's already a lot of problems in making Lightning usable. So you don't want to add problems necessarily of okay, how can we make it the most decentralized right from the get-go? But the task was given to me, Alex, we don't want to run a node. How do we make it so that we can connect these mobile users to other nodes? And originally the task was given to me just as Alex, the Lightning Network, can you just make a list of nodes? Can you just publish it and just manually select some nodes that we're going to be saying are reasonable for routing? And I kind of felt that wasn't, going to be a very good solution. I didn't want to just continually update a list of nodes. So I kind of made a script for myself of trying to figure out what these nodes are based on various data points that I could say, okay, I wrote this script, and now the script updates the list for me. I don't have to maintain this list. And this was just a list that we publish as an API endpoint. It's not built into LND, it's built into the app. And the app kind of tells LND, like, here are the nodes that I want to connect to. And LND instead has a system called the autopilot. And the autopilot uses graph analysis to kind of figure out which are the nodes that have the most peers, basically. Like, I'm looking at the network, who appears to be like the big guys on the network. And that's how the like LND's internal heuristic works. And in the app, we said, why don't we try combining those two heuristics together? So the app would download this JSON file from this endpoint, like just a website, and it would download the public keys. And each public key would have kind of a weighting, which would represent our confidence. Like, this public key is, we feel good about this public key. Okay, maybe don't use it as much. And the idea would be that you would connect to a few of these, and then you'd use a weighting as like a randomizer. So you'd give smaller nodes a chance. We didn't want to like have everybody gang up on one specific node, but at the same time, we don't want to have people just connecting to nodes that are not good, and then maybe they go offline and the user their funds are stuck and they have to close the channel, reopen the channel. We originally merged the two scores. That's how it was designed, is that you could give a weighting in LND how much you want to assign to the graph-based scores and how much you want to assign to external scores. And that's still in LND. It's like a configuration parameter. And we played around with that in the app. And that was kind of the end to my involvement in the BOS scores. But the app itself was retired. So that especially led to the end of my development on the project, because we weren't really maintaining this list for the app that didn't exist anymore. But it kind of took on a life of its own because the endpoint was still around. And that's how the name BOS scores came about. I didn't name it. It was like the name of the commit that just integrated the JSON file into the Lightning app. Like, the developer who did it, he just thought, oh, it's funny, I'll just put in BOS scores. But it kind of took on a life of its own because people are curious, like, when they try to onboard into the Lightning Network, like, number one, who do I connect to? There's so many nodes out there. Do I just connect? And I've always told people, don't connect to the top list, especially 1ML. Like, don't just go to 1ML and look at the big guys and connect to them. It's not good for the network. It's not good for you, because a lot of those guys are not doing a good job with their nodes. It just happens to be that a bunch of people connect to them. And it even gets worse. The problem gets worse the more that people do it, because more people do it, the more connections they have. And then the more connections they have, the more people do it. So that's leading to imbalance. When you try to pay through them, you're going to get all of these one-sided connections. And you can see it like with 1ML's node themselves. They don't have any outbound liquidity. They only have inbound liquidity. So if you connect to them, you've wasted your channel funds, even though they're the top on their own site. So people are looking for alternatives. And then another thing is that people are getting into this concept of like running their node as a game. So they're like, oh, I want to like see how well I can do. And then, that's kind of the benefit of running a routing node, is not just that you're getting routing fees, but also that like you're participating in this kind of like this massively multiplayer game where it's like, oh, I'm going to be the best. And so they turned this list into kind of like a scoring system where they said, who's number one on the list, who's number 2, 3, 4. It's like a leaderboard for the game. It was never designed that way, but and in fact, the list mathematically doesn't even make sense in terms of a ranking, because a lot of it internally it uses bucketing. So it's like these scores we're very confident in, these scores we're less confident in. But in order to get around like the bucketing, people kind of made up like tiebreaker things, and they kind of came up with their own things and made this into like into like bots where it's like, oh, it'll tell you what your score is changing to. So they overloaded this with lots of different concepts, just to kind of have fun with it. And I had nothing to do with that, but it was interesting to see. And then I think some of the feedback came back as people are really getting into this idea of setting up routing nodes for themselves, and then kind of forming user groups where they get their friends to set up a routing node and get those friends to set up a routing node. And they want to have some way to kind of like, they have the same desire. They want that leaderboard. They want to see how things are doing. They want to, you know, feel like they're making progress. And Lightning Labs began a separate project that I don't work on, which is called the Terminal Web. And Terminal Web is like trying to take those scores and the data that is behind the scores, and then try to translate that into feedback to people. Like, here's how you actually do better. But definitely, that's a tough problem. You know, I feel like it's kind of taking work that I did for one problem and applying it to a totally separate problem. So there are areas where it really works, and then there's areas where it needs improvement.
So my issue with this is you explained to me a lot about the why, but not the how, right? And I mean, you kind of addressed this.
Okay, yeah. How does it work?
Wait a second. You kind of addressed this by saying you invented it or you used it for one application and now it's being used in other contexts, right? So let's assume people on the terminal try to improve their BOS score, but maybe it's not useful for them because they don't know how it's really compiled up, right? Because you didn't say something about the how. So how can we resolve this?
That's kind of the impetus. That's why like the project also was prioritized, is because people were asking, like, they were using this score and they were like, how is it put together? How do I go up on the list, right? Because it's a leaderboard. I want to win the game. And so they were asking, how do I do it? How do I do it? And so that kind of created this user demand. And then Justin, who works, he's kind of running the project. He's like, well, why don't we show them how to kind of win the game? And if you go to the website, it will give you these little tips, and it'll say you can win the game by doing this and this and this, and there's like a little check mark of what you need to do. And I can explain kind of broadly how it works. The number one is it uses a lot of data that's normally thrown out by your node. So when you are enter into the Lightning Network, there's this thing called the graph. And the graph is all of the different connections between the different people and the fee rates, and there's disable flag, minimum HTLC size. There's all these different things that are describing how people are connected to each other. And then constantly, people are updating this graph. They're saying, I made this new connection to this new node, or I closed this connection to this node. And normally a Lightning node is going to be deleting that information because all it cares about is the current state of the graph so that it can figure out a path from A to B. But what the big driving technology behind this is that instead of deleting all that data, what if I kept it and I persisted it to a database, and now I have a data set that I can work on, and I can say like, oh well, I can see that this is happening and this is happening, and I can kind of ascribe economic motivations to that. Like, why did this person open up this channel to this person, and why did this person change the fee rate, and why did this person set the disable flag, and try to work backwards based on, because what we can't see necessarily what the node is doing. That's like part of the privacy of the Lightning Network. So instead, we need to look at kind of like, you know, third-party signals, which is like, okay, and that's what people do kind of with 1ML, but just in a very gross way, where they're like, oh, who put in a lot of money on the system? I can see there's a bajillion coins on async, so that must mean something. So I'll connect to async. And it's not that they're wrong, it's that they're not looking at enough data. Like how many coins are involved is just one data point. There's many different data points. And so this passive graph information that I'm always listening for, and it's available in open source data sets, like anybody can, and of course you can run the node and just collect it for yourself. And I also have an open source library on my GitHub if you want to persist it to a database. But the other thing that it does is it also does test payments. So this was made, remember, for doing the introduction of new users to the network. So we wanted to make it so that if somebody downloaded the app, that they would be able to pay a certain amount of payment. So they'd be able to go and buy a gift card. And we wanted that experience to be great from the get-go. So we said, well, one part of what we want to be measuring is, are these people around and they're kind of stable, like I can connect to them, I'm not going to have the rug pulled out under me. And the other part is, do these people actually have a connection to the greater network? Like, can I actually get my payment across? So we make simulated payments across the network, not very frequently. And you also get a lot of data just from the intermediate payment steps. So you can see, you can tell, like, just using the transitive property, you can say, like, if I can pay from A to B to C, then I can also pay to A to B. So it's on a pretty low cadence, but it's making these simulated payments to kind of give you a sense of, like, if you were this user, would you be able to connect to this node that wouldn't go offline? And if you were this user, would you be able to make a payment to buy the gift card or buy whatever you want to buy on Lightning, pay to your friend? And let's just try that out and collect that data, and then use the data to inform what our recommendation is.
But so here's the thing. I mean, what you're telling me is you keep a history of the gossip, and you keep probing the network once in a while. And
exactly.
You collect all this data. Okay, I can do the same. Everybody can do that, so that's fair game. But what you're not telling me is how you use this data, how we use these signals to compile the score. So when you compile this data into a score, you either explicitly or implicitly put certain focus on this, right? And this focus might be good incentive or bad incentive. So I fully trust you with your experience that the resulting score is probably useful to some degree. But I would like to understand in what sense it's useful. So what I'm more interested is not the methodology of you collecting data, but how you compile this data into a score and what your emphasis is. And that I don't understand.
Yeah, the score itself, it is opinionated, right? There's no right answer of, like, which nodes to connect to. So it expresses its own opinion, and the driving force is we don't want to be too tough on nodes. We want to have some distribution. So we'd expect the users to connect to a handful of nodes on the network. And since they're connected to a handful of nodes on the network, it's acceptable for some of them to be down some of the time. And what, I'm describing that in English, but that maps itself into a heuristic of, like, how often we expect the nodes to be down. And then we also say it's okay that if one node loses liquidity, that if they have a few channels, we can expect that the payment will just switch over to the other channel, to the other node, and they'll be able to complete their payment through there. And we're looking maybe for 90% of the time. So, like, that's kind of like the back testing that we would do when we're changing the heuristics of saying, like, we want people to connect to a few different nodes, and we want their payments have a reasonable size. So let's, thinking about the scope of buying a gift card, like the median gift card size on Bitrefill, something like that, that we would hope that we would be targeting that. But it definitely isn't like a, one size fits all kind of thing. I actually have another list that I publish, which is on yalls.org, which is a list of my nodes that I'm connected to. And for that, I use a different set of data, which is more oriented towards routing. So, I think that the intention when I made it was not to, like, kind of be a judgmental score. It was more to be like a recommendation list to try to encourage people to connect to a wider distributed set of nodes. Yeah, even the core protocol maybe needs to change to simplify some things that currently are too complicated.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I learned again today is people asking, how does it actually work? And my feeling is, whenever I explain somebody how a payment channel really works with the multi-signature thing, and then it's just a smart way of using Bitcoin, people are like, oh yeah, that's good. I'm gonna explain this to 5 friends. All right. So by the end of the day, what everybody can do is just go out and explain it to people. I mean, the more people understand how something works, the easier it is for them to use it, actually. And I'm not talking understanding in the sense of, like, oh, download the wallet and make a payment, but really understand what's going on there, because it's mind-blowing. So this is something that everybody can do, and I like this much better than the idea of marketing.
However, talking of mind-blowing things, so we have a new speaker here, Pollofeed. I think everyone maybe knows it, the chicken stream, which is, unfortunately, right now, I think the chicken are all eaten by the fox. But if you hear this, Pollofeed, it would be great to share a little bit, to hear a bit how you started developing fun use cases for Lightning.
Awesome. Yeah, good to be here. Love listening on some of the payments. I've had some actual issues sending some larger payments. I might have to get some info on that later. It was stuck for 24 hours or so. I thought I had to close the channel, but ended up doing all right. But yeah, basically I found out that, man, accepting payments on Lightning was pretty easy. And I've just been using my own instance of BTC Pay Server to accept that. There's definitely some easier ways, like maybe using OpenNode I would do now, but I just find that, man, it's been really fun to just select the Lightning node and then just interact with hardware too. So yeah, right now there's no chickens. Right now it's all my parents' stuff and they're moving, so we just have a little shitty thing in the meantime with some lights. But yeah, I just love building, and I'm looking to open source too the project. I just want to make sure I don't have any environment variables and anything in there. And been a little busy, but always if any guys have any questions or want to figure out how I've done it or something, always glad to give a little demo or shout it out. So
I was thinking to reach out to a farmer with cattle, and put one of these machines that the cows use to massage, and make that a tipping type of thing.
Yeah, if you can just get a little alarm on or something like that, just come running. That'd be pretty funny. Yeah, there's some cows right near my apartment complex, and there's always 5 people, usually the same 5 people, just staring there and looking at them. But yeah, that would definitely get some attention. But yeah, if I had my own farm, I'd probably have a bunch of these things going on now, because I love just programming with the Arduinos and the Raspberry Pis. It's been pretty fun for me.
Yeah, I love the idea of a lot of farming implements are becoming automated with GPS tractors and autonomous things like this. It'd be really interesting to have kind of a communal farm that is owned by a bunch of people and funded through, I don't know, channels like this, Lightning channels to pay for the tractor to trot along and harvest.
Fully decentralized Lightning farm.
Yeah.
I think we should really push for, the World Health Organization is doing such a bad job with their shit advice, right? So instead we should have a Wagyu world standard where every human being should have possibility to access affordable Wagyu beef, high quality beef, and so that could be the way where automized Lightning funded cattle.
It is cool that you could do that, and it already has accounting sort of built in to Lightning, which is nice. So you don't have to do a lot of these double tracking that. You can have it represent one Lightning payment or 1 millisatoshi represent whatever unit you pretty much want, and we can pre-track that.
I would have one question. There are a couple of more questions in the chat also, which we could tackle. I have one question about regulation. So right now, I think Lightning is really disregarded entirely, right? Nobody knows, nobody cares. But do you see at some point that governments will try to to cover that area as well? For example, from Malta, they say, okay, so there's a virtual financial test, and if Bitcoin marks that or something, then it's a virtual asset, it's a virtual financial asset. And so it's in a similar way they could say, yeah, Satoshis on Lightning channels are actually virtual digital assets or something like that.
I mean, I keep pretty close eye on the regulations, especially out of the EU, and there's literally nothing that's being talked about on a specific layer 2 solutions, although they're definitely they're scrambling like crazy. This isn't specifically Bitcoin related, but definitely, there's all sorts of vectors in this world now happening because of blockchain technology, which is causing a whole bunch of regulators don't know where to look anymore, because there's this happening over here, there's that happening over there, and there's it's just becoming so crazy that I just don't think they can keep up. Saying that, I think there'll be overarching regulations based on privacy and reporting, and I feel that the main thing that governments really care about, they don't really care about money laundering. They care about collecting taxes, and the reason why they don't like money laundering is because they want to turn that money from black money to white money where they can tax it, and which actually money laundering does. It actually turns it to white money that they can tax. So in a way, I think the overarching rule set will be going back to what it always was in taxation, and that is not to have a direct access to the money like they have for the last 20 years with the banking system, or 30 years, 40 years. But now that that's been taken away from them, I think it just goes back to the system of, you better tell us what you're up to, and if we find out you're not doing it the right way, then you go to prison, and that's all that will happen. So that will be the regulation, more that stuff of, you better, if we start to put the magnifying glass over your personal finances and see something that you haven't reported, then and that goes for companies, corporations, trusts, everything else. So that's, I think, eventually where this regulations will go, and they won't really focus on technologies because there's no possible way they can keep up.
Okay. So I think, we could wrap up. Maybe some closing remarks for everyone. And then, if you still want to stick around, obviously it's possible. Shall we wrap it up a bit?
Well, thanks for this unconference. Been really cool. I wish more people would do this kind of thing, because all the tools are available for anybody to do, like these virtual user groups. And I've done also things like the Boltathon before, where you kind of come together and hack on some stuff for a weekend. This kind of thing where it's just bring people together to talk maybe on a more general level about how Bitcoin is working, how Lightning is working. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, obviously, I think the preferred way is an actual physical conference. But this one here is really just started, as a small hangout, and then it turned a bit bigger. And so when the time is right, I guess, sure, we might have a real conference. But there are other great conferences. Yeah, it's really about time that conferences get back to business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely want to second what Alex said. It's really, really nice to see stuff focused on the Lightning Network, as so-called old season, everyone, that's all you hear, and it's just freaking annoying after a while. Sure, it's fun, but this is the real deal. This is what needs to be worked on. This is what needs to be, this is the $1 trillion network that needs to be expanded. And I don't feel the long-term run is purely store of value. We have lots of different assets that can, Bitcoin is unique in the way it does it, but I think for you to be able to store value, it'd be really, really, really interesting and add a lot of value to that, to be able to easily spend it and move that around and pay and everything else. And we have a long way to go with the Lightning Network in terms of point of sale terminals and recording transactions, to, accounting, and all this magic that comes along with playing with internet money, especially with the crazy volatility. As this is the oldest conversation in Bitcoin, but that looks like the volatility is going to be around for a while. So having tools that will easily account for all of this and allow you to account for it is really cool. I do think it's definitely going to continue being the payment process for perpetual travelers, digital freelancers, and stuff like that, and people that have both feet steadily in this space. They don't really care that much about the volatility compared to people that have 1 foot in the real world and 1 foot in the crypto world, who somehow really care about that. But yeah, thanks again for putting this on. It's really great, Leon, and please do it again soon.
Cool. Yeah, so I think from a speaker side, we have only you guys left. Alex, Tim, maybe what's your key takeaway from this today?
No, this was a fantastic. I think really useful. I think if you broadcast this, or if you have this available for other people to watch later, really useful stuff. There's a couple of things about Lightning that I think about a lot, and one of them is, if you look at Bitcoin itself and you look at Lightning, and then you take these two things and you compare it to like what's going on in sort of the cryptocurrency space, it gets it gets crowded out a lot. Like in the Twitter discussions, like if you're paying attention to a lot of Twitter stuff, it's like overwhelming because there's all these altcoins and scams and whatever you want to call them. There's just tons and tons of stuff out there, and it's overwhelming for beginners to figure out what's real, what's not. And Lightning and Bitcoin both, in my opinion, come from a very organic kind of grassroots place where there's no huge pre-mine like guy CEO who like owns like 70% of the coins and therefore has this huge incentive to like market the hell out of a coin or something, right? Out of the technology. And so because it's so kind of organic, it really relies on the individual users and these smaller entities going out there and promoting it, and it's just not the same budget. But at the same time, I think that's kind of a good thing, because when I look at Bitcoin and when I look at Lightning, it's very focused on the technology and getting the engineering right. Being actually decentralized and secure and private and all of those good things. So yeah, that's what I really look at in terms of the marketing stuff. But I think having these kinds of unconferences is an excellent way to get the word out. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, great having you. Maybe you should also consider a podcast, a Microlancer podcast. I think that would be fun for people.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah, it's been a really, really great thing. I have to thank again all the speakers for joining and all the attendees. I think on YouTube we had around 60 people, 70 people joining the live stream, and here on and off it was between 20 and 40 people all the time. So yeah, it's really fantastic that there is so much interest. And I think also, yeah, what I learned was there's actually like when you have a Lightning conference, it is a technical debate. Of course it is about the technology. So it's I think I need to find a different format for real beginners to onboard. It's probably I need another type of event maybe. But anyways, it's been a really, really great opportunity to get to know some of you also, and also see how many people, how much is going on there, and so beautiful to see so many projects working and how the progress goes. Because I think, again, for me, the most important thing about Lightning really is that it does help scaling Bitcoin, and it is hopefully a useful payment network at some point. I mean, it already is. Like, yeah, as we concluded that, like, you can already use it, right? And so from my side, I look forward for another one, hopefully. And I had one more thing I wanted to mention, but I forgot. It was a long party yesterday, I have to admit.
I have a quick thing where we go live every Friday at the World Crypto Network
right, yeah.
with the Thomas Hunt and the crew over there to do the Bitcoin group. And I think it's the longest running talk show on crypto, on Bitcoin. So check it out. We do it every Friday. It's fun. And we generally just talk Bitcoin and the odd altcoin every so often, but rarely. It's always Bitcoin.
All right. Then, yeah, thanks everyone a ton. It's been big fun. I wishing everyone a fantastic Lightning weekend. Hope to see you again, and we will put all the links that have been posted here in the chat in a document and share it in the Telegram group so we can connect. And then, yeah, hopefully on to another round soon. So thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.